Part 1. The Last Dinner. The dining room was loud when my daughter Lisa tossed it out like a joke. Grandma smells like a pharmacy. Like our basement. Tyler snorted into his mashed potatoes. Chloe giggled. My son-in-law Evan shot me a thumbs up, as if the punchline belonged to him. I set the roasting pan on the trivet, wiped the table, and sat without a word. I'm 69. I paid for this kitchen in a Chicago suburb, one double shift at a time. Tonight I learned what I am here. Staff. Lisa has been living temporarily with me since Tyler was born. 13 years. Evan has been between projects for 8 months. My pension and 4 decades of savings carry the mortgage-free house, utilities, groceries, insurance, school extras, coffees they don't need, shoes the kids outgrow in a season. I cook. They scroll. I clean. They laugh. The joke was mine to hear and theirs to forget. After dinner, I stacked plates, ran hot water, scraped pans, polished the stovetop the way habit demands. No tears, no speeches, just a pencil, my old ledger, and numbers I trust more than people. Savings accounts, CDs, a ladder of municipal bonds, the deed to this house, the little garage I rent to a bicycle mechanic. Totals marched across the page like soldiers, enough to choose freedom without asking permission. At dawn, I brewed coffee, set oatmeal to simmer for the kids, and took the 8:10 bus downtown. Mr. Patel at the bank has known me for years. 15 minutes, and paper did what words never could. We canceled Lisa's household card. We shut off the autopays Evan used on my behalf. We opened a new account at a partner credit union across town and put a portion of my investments under in-person release only. No more tapping Grandma's wallet from a phone. Next stop, the law office. Ms. Hargrove read fast and listened faster. We updated my will, named my cousin Anita as medical proxy if I'm ever not clear-minded, signed a fresh capacity statement, and drafted a letter for the police in case anyone tries to pressure me about money. Her pen clicked shut. "You're protected," she said. Good. I wasn't looking for comfort. I wanted locks. Apartments came after lunch. The first place smelled like old onions. The second was right. Elevator that worked. Small kitchen with a window over maples. 2 blocks to a library and a park where the geese complain like old men. I left a deposit and asked for keys tomorrow. The leasing agent slid the agreement across the desk. "Welcome home," she said. I liked the sound of that. Back at my house, the evening replayed its usual film. Lisa scolded the kids. Evan talked about warm leads. Tyler begged for pizza. Chloe asked where her favorite glass had gone. I sliced salad and seared chicken. When they were done performing family, they drifted to screens. I made a pie for goodbye and packed the dishwasher. Then I wrote a letter and put it on the table beside the spare keys. Lisa, Evan, Tyler, Chloe, you may stay here 30 days by my goodwill. After that, you must leave. From today, all bills are yours. The house is mine. The cards are mine. No more purchases in my name. No more automatic drafts. I am moving out, and I will change the locks. If you want to talk, use the language of respect and action. At 5 a.m., I rolled a small suitcase to the door. 3 dresses, a sweater, documents, the photograph I like, the dented saucepan from the 90s that knows my hand. I called a cab from the next street so no one would hear. By 9, movers carried a bed and a table up to the 5th floor. I made the bed and opened the window. The silence had a shape I hadn't felt in years. The phone rang after lunch. Mom, what is this circus with the card? Lisa's voice was sharp. I could hear the supermarket hum behind her. Not a circus, I said. Order. And the tub is leaking. Call a plumber. The invoice is yours. Evan tried the bank the next morning, then tried me. Lisa says you moved into some dump. An elevator building near a park. What about the kids? The kids have parents. On the third night, Anita met me at a discount store and helped me choose only 2 plates, 2 cups, 1 small microwave. At the checkout, I stopped my hand from grabbing extras for everyone. Everyone is over. A week later, motion started at the old house. Lisa phoned insurance. Evan scratched figures on envelopes. Tyler asked how much Wi-Fi costs. Chloe wanted to know why the light bill was so high if lights are small. They didn't realize the deadline in my letter wasn't a bluff. It was a clock. 2 weeks in, Lisa found me on a park bench with the Tribune. Mom, come back for a month. We'll catch up. What did you do these 2 weeks? Evan went to an interview. I asked for full time. Good. Keep going. You love us. I do. That's why you'll live on your own dime. On day 20, Tyler called. Grandma, how do you make pancakes without lumps? Use a whisk. Measure flour with a cup, not your eyeballs. Thanks. And sorry about the joke. It was dumb. Humor is taste. Respect is duty. Day 30. I arrived with a locksmith. New deadbolts. Photos of meter readings. Windows latched. Lisa pulled up as we stepped out. You're serious? Absolutely. Return the keys to Anita. A month later, they rented a 2-bedroom on the edge of town. Evan started selling auto parts by day and driving at night. Lisa moved to full-time. The kids changed schools and learned fitted sheets are a puzzle you can solve with your own hands. In the house where I used to scrub pans until midnight, quiet settled like clean snow. I signed papers with a women's charity. When I'm gone, this house funds emergency housing for seniors. The grandkids will get a trust at 25. Lisa gets a modest restart check, and she'll sign for it like everyone else signs for their own lives. 3 months on, a letter arrived from Chloe, looped and crooked, but straight to the point. Grandma, I learned to mop floors. Dad says it's a team sport. I put it in my wooden box next to a photograph of me younger, standing outside the first sewing shop I ran. Starting over is a skill. I still have it. Christmas came. They brought store rolls, a little burnt, honest anyway. Tyler set the table. Chloe put her phone away and folded napkins. Evan took out the trash without commentary. I poured tea. No speeches. We let actions do the talking. I sleep now without alarms set for other people's hunger. When the kettle sings, it sings for one. My name is Marjorie Hayes, and tonight I learned the simplest math. Stop paying for other people's irresponsibility, and your life starts paying you back. Part 2, 30 days later. Evan didn't see the lesson. He saw a loophole. On a gray Tuesday, he tried to list my house on a fast cash site, claiming joint authority. The realtor called me, my number's on the deed, and I arrived with a paper folder that ends arguments. Title, updated will, capacity statement, and Ms. Hargrove's letter. The woman at the desk glanced through it and turned to Evan. Sir, you have no standing. He reddened, mumbled something about family agreements, and left fast. I left slower, so he'd have time to feel it. Consequence. I sold the garage that week. The mechanic bought it at a fair price and shook my hand like people used to. I put part of the money into a little fund. Rent help for women my age who need one clean month to escape bad homes. Anita called it revenge. I called it interest finally paid. Lisa tried tenderness next. She showed up at my building with a casserole and a soft voice. Mom, Tyler misses your stories. Good. Stories teach. Here's a new one. Budgets. I slid a yellow pad across the table. Write your numbers. She balked, then wrote. Rent, utilities, groceries. The column didn't lie. We can't breathe, she whispered. You were snorkelers in a fountain, I said. Time to learn to swim. Chloe visited solo on a Wednesday. She carried a shoebox. Inside, a crumpled apron. Dad got me a Saturday shift at the deli. Can you show me how to keep mustard out of my sleeves? Flip the cuff. Rinse cold, not hot. She smiled like a small son and left a note on my fridge. See you for tea. Evan tried one more trick. A wellness check. 2 officers knocked, polite and apologetic. Ma'am, your son-in-law reported concern about your capacity. I poured them tea and handed over the capacity certificate, signed and notarized. The younger cop read it twice. Ma'am, I wish my gran had a file like this. Tell her to start one, I said, and watched them apologize their way back to the elevator. I kept my own calendar busy. Mornings at the library, afternoons in the park, evenings at a free clinic where I mended uniforms and sewed buttonholes for nurses who didn't have time. Ms. Hargrove asked if I'd lead a workshop, Money and Boundaries, for seniors. I opened with the first rule I learned too late. A gift repeated becomes a job. Name it, or it will name you. Thanksgiving crept up. Lisa called, careful with her words. We'll bring everything to you. No pressure. No turkey, I said. Soup and pies. Everybody sits. Everybody cleans. They arrived on time with store crusts and honest nerves. Tyler peeled carrots like he meant it. Evan washed dishes without commentary. When we finished, I pulled out 4 envelopes, plain, unsealed. Contracts, I said. Not for me, for you. Inside each, 1 promise and 1 action. Lisa, bring a written budget. Cut 1 expense you only buy to look fine. Evan, hold a job 30 days without evaluating offers. Prove it with pay stubs. Tyler, cook dinner for the family once a week and leave the kitchen spotless. Chloe, run laundry start to finish every Saturday. Write down what each step costs. Are we being tested? Evan asked. No, I said. You're graduating. Pass or repeat. They didn't like it. They signed anyway. 2 weeks later, Lisa texted a photo, clipped credit card on a plate. Goodbye daily lattes. Hello beans at home. Evan sent pay stubs from an auto parts warehouse and a picture of his brown palms, honest dirt ground into the creases. Tyler posted a spaghetti night. The sauce was too thin, the pride just right. Chloe taped an index card above their machine. Cold. Cheaper for colors. December brought the first real storm and the first real slip. Evan missed a shift, blamed the bus, and asked if I could float this month's internet. No, I said. Float your excuses that far, and you'll drown. He went quiet for 3 days, then took a weekend shift to make up the hours. Consequence again, less dramatic, more useful. At church, a woman I barely knew pressed my hands. You're the one who left, she said. I thought about it for 10 years. Last week I did. We stood with our coats open to the heat, strangers and not. Sometimes the bravest thing is walking out the right door. Christmas wasn't big. It was correct. They came with cinnamon rolls, underbaked, but theirs. We ate, then I showed the kids how to fix a hem and Evan how to snake a slow drain. Lisa stayed after to talk numbers. Real talk, not the kind where hope erases math. On New Year's Day, Anita and I stood on my porch and watched the fireworks over the park. She nudged me. "So what's your resolution, Marjorie?" "Nothing cute," I said. "Enforce the contract. Mine." I slept with the window cracked and woke to a city that didn't need me to make breakfast. Somewhere across town, my old kitchen was learning the worth of hot water, and my family was learning the price of a light left on. It's not cruelty to let the bill arrive. It's adulthood. Part 3 would begin later, when an envelope appeared in my mailbox with a return address I hadn't seen in 40 years. The man who left before Lisa could remember his face. But that's another lesson, and I intend to grade it on a curve of exactly 0. Part 3. Return address. Unknown. The envelope sat on my doormat like a stray shoe. No name, just a return address in Joliet. The handwriting was cocky, the kind men use when they expect doors to open. Inside, 1 sheet. Marjorie. "We should talk. I'm in town. Call me." Mark Dalton. Mark. The man who walked out when Lisa was 3 and left a note that sounded like weather. I need space. 40 years of silence, and now he was in town. I didn't call. I scanned the letter, emailed Ms. Hargrove, and slid the original into a clear sleeve in my red folder, the one I carry when people mistake me for soft. Then I made tea and waited for the second knock. It came at dusk. Not my door, my intercom. "Marge, it's Mark." He said my name like he still owned the vowels. I pressed the talk button. "Use the bench across from Tony's diner. 15 minutes. I hung up and phoned Anita. "If I'm not back in an hour, you call Hargrove. Tony's smells like hot plates and old stories." Mark took a booth with his back to the wall, the same way he used to claim the best chair in our living room. He was leaner, grayer, expensive jacket that didn't fit the wrists. His eyes scanned me like inventory. "You look good," he started. "You look like a man with paperwork," I said. "Say what you came to say." He leaned in. "It's Lisa. I want to make things right." "With me or with your conscience?" He slid a folder. Medical forms, insurance letters, a handwritten list. The shape of the grift showed itself in 10 seconds. "I need a local address for a procedure," he said. "Insurance is being difficult. If I could say I'm staying with family, the copay. No." I pushed the folder back with one finger. "You had a family. You left." He tried the charm that used to make waitresses overpour coffee. "We were kids, Marge. I made mistakes. Adults pay for mistakes. Kids learn from them. You did neither." He sighed theatrically. "There's another thing. I've been talking to Lisa online. Without asking me. She's my daughter. She's a woman who knows what you did." I kept my voice flat. "If you want a meeting, you ask me first. You do not appear in her inbox like a coupon." He flushed, the color of a cheap tomato. "I could help her. He paused. "Land holdings in Indiana. Options." "Options tend to shrink under audit," I said. "Show deeds." He didn't. He reached for sentiment instead. "I remember the old house, the way you scrubbed the table until it shone. You still have it?" I smiled without teeth. "You don't need that answer." A server poured coffee. He reached for sugar. His hand shook. "Not nerves. Habit. Men like Mark are never nervous because they do nothing that costs them." "Here's what happens," I said, pulling my own folder. "If you contact Lisa again, you copy me. Any request that mentions living space, money, insurance, or addresses gets a no. If you need medical advocacy, You hire it. If you have something for her, proof, not promises, you send it certified to Ms. Hargrove. You do not drop by schools, my building, or my old street. You break any of that, I file. Restraining order, harassment. He laughed once, dry. Still a foreman. Finally, I said. Anything else? He tried one last door. You don't want closure? I closed when you opened the front door and didn't come back. I left cash on the saucer for my coffee and stood. He stayed seated, calculating angles where there aren't any. Outside, the air had the iron taste of coming snow. I called Lisa. You heard from him? I asked. A pause. He messaged me on Facebook last week. I didn't tell you because you knew better, I said. Listen, if he writes, you add me. Do not meet him alone. He wants addresses. He wants leverage. He might dangle money. Ask for proofs by mail to Ms. Hargrove. Do you think he's sick? I think he's needy. Those two often travel together. That night I drafted 3 letters. One to Ms. Hargrove summarizing the diner meeting. One to the property manager authorizing them to deny entry to a Mr. Dalton, any alias. One to the kids' school with photos and instructions. No unscheduled pickups. I don't barricade. I label. Mark tested the lines within a week. He left roses at my old house. The neighbor texted me a photo. He mailed a second letter to Lisa's place. Thin apology on thick paper, and a P.S. Tell your mom the house looked quiet. The bait sat there, shiny and dumb. I answered with silence and a certified note from Hargrove's office. All further communication through counsel. The paperweight of law does what scolding never will. Then he shifted tactics. Tyler came home with a story. A friend of Grandpa had chatted him up outside the rec center. Tyler kept walking, good boy, and told Lisa. We met at the principal's office next morning. I laid out the photos and the boundary letter. The principal, a woman who runs a school like a port, nodded and updated the list. Only Mom, Dad, or Marjorie. Anyone else, we call. Mark went quiet for 2 weeks, and then the registered mail landed on Ms. Hargrove's desk. A will draft naming Lisa as an heir to Midwestern acreage, contingent upon reconciliation. The estate smelled like tumbleweeds and wishful thinking. Hargrove called a clerk in Marion County, and by Thursday we had the truth. The parcels were long since sold, the taxes eaten, the claims dirty. Mark owned nothing but a car payment and a phrase book of excuses. I asked for one more meeting, neutral ground. Anita's church hall, fluorescent lights, no corners to hide in. Lisa came with a notebook. Evan sat for once and kept his mouth shut. Mark arrived late, performed a cough. I spoke first. We are not reconciling for acreage you don't own. If you want contact, you build it the way houses get built, 1 brick at a time, with receipts. You show up on time. You tell the truth you can prove. You never ask for an address, a signature, or a card. Lisa lifted her chin. I'll talk to you, but only in public places. If you ask me for money, we're done. Tyler added, quiet but clear, don't talk to me at practice again. Mark's eyes darted to Evan, maybe hoping for an ally. Evan stared back the way men do when they finally met a mirror. No help there. Mark's shoulders sagged. Just a little. Fine, he muttered. Public. No asks. Good, I said. Start with one truth that costs you. He swallowed. I left because I was drowning. Work, bills, truth that costs you, I repeated. A beat. Then, I had someone else, he said, voice small for the first time. For a while. It didn't last. Lisa wrote one word in her notebook and shut it. Noted. We adjourned. No hugs, no promises. In the parking lot, snow began, dry and decisive. Lisa tapped my arm. Thanks for the haul, she said. And the rules. Rules keep wolves out, I said. They also teach sheep to stand up. That night back in my apartment, I filed the meeting notes, then opened my own mail. A plain envelope this time, Ohio postmark. Inside, a single check from a company I didn't recognize, and a note. Final distribution. Textile pension adjustment. Not fortune, not fiction. Fact. The kind of money that turns into groceries, classes, a repaired tooth. I smiled. Life, unlike men, pays what it owes. Eventually. Next part starts when a different letter arrives. Not from a man, but from a bank. Addressed to the estate of Beatrice Reed, a name I hadn't said out loud in 50 years. My mother's ledger had found me, and inside it, debts I never knew, and a secret deed with my name already on it. Part 4. My mother's ledger. The bank envelope was thick, cream paper, the kind reserved for condolences and lawsuits. 2. The estate of Beatrice Reed. My mother. I hadn't said her name out loud in decades. Inside, a formal letter, a key on a brass tag, and a notice from a storage facility downtown. Box 312. Fees prepaid through the end of the year. There was also a photocopy of something that stopped my breath for exactly one beat. An old deed. A tidy craftsman bungalow 2 neighborhoods over. Owner of record. Beatrice Reed. Life estate. Remainder. Marjorie Hayes. I took a bus before the kettle could even boil. The storage clerk slid a ledger across the counter like a bartender with a secret. The brass key turned, the door rolled up, and dust lifted in temperate sheets. Inside, 3 boxes, a sewing machine in its case, and a metal tin with my mother's initials. I opened the tin first. Bundled ration coupons, a strand of hair ribbon, a photo of her in a shirtwaist dress, chin lifted. Then the ledger, my mother's square handwriting, columns obedient as church pews. Mortgage paid, 1978, taxes current, rent collected, 65 repairs, porch rail, gutter. Page after page, simple arithmetic that beats poetry. She had kept that little house, rented it cheap, and never told me because she didn't want me distracted. On the last page, a neat line. Remainder to Marjorie. If she needs it, she'll know. I knew. The address brought me to a tree-lined street where porches knew names. The bungalow sat quiet, paint faded to an honest chalk, violets pushing through cracks by the steps. A neighbor watched from behind a newspaper and nodded once. Inside smelled like thyme and Murphy oil soap. Bare rooms, clean floors, a shelf lined with mismatched jars labeled in pencil. Hinges, screws, fuses, purpose. Under the sink, a new shut-off valve. Someone, not long ago, had cared. I called Ms. Hargrove from the front room. Can you verify the chain of title and the life estate language? Already pulled, she said. Your mother was precise. The property is yours, free and clear. No liens. Taxes due next quarter. Good, I said. I'm going to put it to work. Work meant locks first. A local locksmith changed them while I swept. Light strokes, not sentiment. Preparation. Then I called Anita. Bring your camera. We're making a list. We walked room to room. Paint, fixture updates, 2 loose boards on the back steps, 1 cracked pane. Nothing a weekend and a budget couldn't solve. At lunch, the neighbor finally folded his newspaper. You Beatrice's girl? Yes. She kept the porch light on for people who needed it, he said. Glad it's still family. I had a plan before the coffee cooled. The charity I'd partnered with needed short-term placements, 30 to 90 days, for women untangling their lives. The bungalow could be exactly that. A landing strip, not a destination. Safe, warm, labeled, with rules as clear as the pantry. I called the director. I'll furnish and carry utilities. You handle placement, oversight, and cleaning between stays. No rent? 90-day cap? This is a bridge, not a couch. She didn't breathe for half a second. Marjorie, you're serious? Very. I have a ledger. It wants entries. We moved fast. Tyler and Chloe hauled boxes with me on Saturday, sweating and cheerful in a way I hadn't seen before. I paid them, not because they asked, but because work deserves currency. Tyler assembled beds with an Allen key and the stubbornness of a teenager learning torque. Chloe labeled bins, linens, tools, paper goods, first aid. She spelled everything right. Lisa arrived with lamps and a guilty face. I found these on clearance, she said. Then set them up where light is missing, I said. Guilt doesn't hang well. Evan showed up with an apology baked into motion. He patched the back step, reseated a toilet, and rehung one door that had a tired hinge. He never asked for gas money. I noticed, and I said so. Praise is currency, too, when given for the right job. Mark sent a text from a number I didn't recognize. Heard you came into property. Need a hand? I blocked the number and sent a one-line email to Ms. Hargrove. Please add confidentiality note read property to correspondence. Wolves don't stop. You build a taller fence. By Sunday, the house looked ready for a life to begin. We stocked a small pantry with staples and printed rules on one laminated sheet. 1. 90 days max. 2. You cook, you clean, you lock up. 3. No unpaid guests. 4. Keep receipts. Pay what you can to the utility jar. Leave an accounting whether it's $1 or a note. 5. When you leave, take only what you brought and what we hand you in a starter box. 6. If you break something, tell us in ink. Anita snapped a photo of me on the porch, hand on the newel post, not smiling for effect, just present. The director placed the first tenant by Wednesday, a retired bus driver named Sylvia, who needed exactly 60 days to move from a bad lease to a decent one. Rules are clear, Sylvia said, walking the rooms with the eyes of someone who slept in loud places. Porch light works? I flipped the switch. It glowed steady, calm as a metronome. Always, I said. The first night, I sat on my own couch with my mother's ledger and a new pen. Occupant, Sylvia M., move-in 03 sites. Deposit, 0, pantry stocked. Yes, utilities jar started. Yes, porch light, working. I dated the entry and closed the book. The page made a soft sound, like a hand smoothing a wrinkle. The ripple effects started quick. Tyler asked if he could fix the door that stuck at my apartment. I'll watch a video, he said, already rolling up his sleeves. Chloe showed Lisa her laundry chart and tacked a new list on their fridge. Evan stopped qualifying his job with "for now." He said, "my shift," and meant it. Lisa brought me a real budget with numbers that finally added. I visited the bungalow at dusk a week later. Sylvia was on the porch with a paperback. She nodded at the street. A man slowed down earlier, looked too long, drove off. Neighbor? I asked. Didn't look like one. I checked the camera feed we'd installed. Mark's car shape is a habit. This wasn't it. Still, I printed a still frame for the director and the precinct's community officer. The porch light stayed on. When I got home, there was another letter. Official windowed envelope. Return address the county recorder's office. Inside, confirmation that the deed transfer and name updates were complete, along with a fee receipt. Paperwork in order. Locks in place. Ledger balanced. I made tea and dialed Lisa. Tomorrow you and the kids come for dinner, I said. You bring the recipe. You bring the groceries. I'll bring the stove. Deal, she said. No bargaining, no whining. Just yes. I slept with the window cracked and dreamt of two women at a table. My mother with her ledger, and me with mine. She wrote numbers like prayers. I write rules like bridges. Between us, a porch light burned. Next, the past tried one last door in the form of a certified envelope stamped Notice of Probate and from Indiana, with a name I hadn't heard since the textile floor. My old supervisor, dead now, and the kind of clause in his will that drags secrets out by their collars. Part 5. Probate and Payback. The certified envelope wore Indiana like a badge. Notice of Probate. Estate of Harold P. Klein. Klein, my old floor supervisor at Lakeview Textile, a man who measured minutes like rent and docked pay with a smile. Inside, a hearing date, a claim number, and a sentence that didn't fit the man I remembered. Former employees identified by ledger are potential beneficiaries. I called Ms. Hargrove. Could be restitution disguised as legacy, she said. Could be a trap with paperwork. Either way, we go. We took the early train. The courthouse smelled like varnish and reheated coffee. The clerk handed us a stack. Klein's will, an exhibit list, and a scan of something I knew before I read the caption. My time cards from 1986, 1993, the ones that always came back shaved. The exhibit after that, an affidavit from Klein's accountant. Decedent maintained a private ledger of unpaid overtime and set aside funds for eventual settlement. Requested distribution upon death to avoid litigation. The executor, a tidy woman in navy, called the names of 15 women and 3 men. We sat in 2 rows like a choir that had learned to sing over machines. When my name came, the executor asked the same plain questions to each of us. Did you work at Lakeview? Were you paid for every hour? Can you testify, if needed? Yes, I said to each, truth moving like a cart on rails. Then the door at the back opened. Mark walked in with a swagger he hadn't earned in a decade. He spotted me, tipped his chin, and leaned on the wall like a man in a bar. The bailiff shifted his weight. Hargrove whispered, "Ignore the scenery." The executor passed around photocopies of a ledger, Klein's, lined and cramped. Next to each of our names, the shorthand of theft, 025, 0.5, 0.75. At the bottom of my page, total due, Hayes, $18,420 plus interest. I didn't blink. Overtime is math. Math doesn't apologize. When the judge entered, he kept it quick. The decedent created a restitution trust. The court will honor it. Distributions today are partial. The balance follows upon final accounting. Counsel for beneficiaries? Hargrove stood, crisp as a staple. Ready, Your Honor. During recess, Mark slid closer, voice pitched for charm. Big day, Marge. Proud of you. Pick a new audience, I said. I could help. Investments. Advice? Your last advice cost me 20 years. Step back. He didn't. He tried volume instead. Lisa could use a hand. I'm still her father. The bailiff took one step forward. Mark read the room at last and found the door he'd come through. We signed releases, showed IDs, and waited while the executor checked the names. A clerk called mine and handed me a cashier's check and a packet. The number was real, not fantasy. Inside the packet, the formula, the interest table, the apology I didn't need. I folded the check into my red folder and exhaled once, like a stitch pulled flat. On the platform home, I called Anita. "Lunch on me," I said. "Only if it's cheap," she said, which is why I love her. Back in Chicago, I didn't march the check to a store or a couch or a vacation I'd never take. I marched it to two places: the Bungalow Ledger and a credit union that doesn't sell people dreams. We funded 3 cycles of utilities, emergency repairs, and a quiet envelope labeled Exit Grants, $250 stipends for women leaving the porch with their keys in hand. The director cried. I didn't. I wrote entries: Klein restitution, deposit, porch light, funded, rules, unchanged. That night, Lisa called without preamble. "Evan got offered a supervisor slot," she said. "Night shift, more pay." He said yes without the speech. "Good," I said. "He can sleep in daylight like the rest of us did." Tyler texted a photo, a door he'd rehung at my place, level bubble, dead center. Chloe sent a voice memo. "Grandma, I learned how to hem jeans. I didn't stab myself once." I saved it. These are the dividends that matter. Mark wasn't done. He sent Lisa a message. Sugar over wire. "Heard about the court. Proud of your mom. You should share. Family." Lisa forwarded it to me and then to Hargrove. The reply we drafted was 10 words and worked like a fence. "All financial matters are handled by counsel. Do not contact us. Block, file, breathe." 2 weeks later, the bungalow took its second tenant, Denise, a hospital cafeteria worker whose landlord lost her rent and found an eviction notice. She arrived with 2 bags, a medical badge, and a jaw set like mine. She read the rules, signed with a clean C, and asked about the porch light. "Always on," I said. On her third night, Denise's ex circled the block twice in a dented sedan. The porch camera caught the plate. I phoned our community officer, who drove by twice an hour till the car learned a new street. Rules keep wolves out. Lights make them squint. The probate's second distribution came by mail. A thinner check, a thicker closure. I endorsed it to the charity in front of Tyler and Chloe at my kitchen table. "This," I said, "is what back pay buys when you don't owe anyone anymore." Lisa watched, then unfolded her own paper, a budget with real numbers and margins that didn't depend on me. "We can manage," she said. "No wobble, no sell." That week, a letter arrived from a reporter in Indiana. He wanted color for a story about Klein's secret restitution fund. I gave him none. People like to make saints or villains from factories. I prefer math. On Sunday, we celebrated like we do now, quietly. Anita brought a pie that didn't burn. Evan fixed my drippy faucet without being asked. Tyler washed dishes he didn't dirty. Chloe left a note on my fridge in block letters. "Thank you for rules." I put it beside her deli schedule. Boundaries are love with numbers attached. When the house quieted, I opened my red folder and slid the probate receipts behind the capacity letter, under the deed, above the restraining note template Hargrove drew up, just in case. My life now fits in a file you can carry in one hand and defend with one sentence. I slept with the window cracked, spring air making the curtains breathe. Sometime before dawn, my phone buzzed. Not Lisa, not Anita. A number I didn't recognize, and a text short as a match strike. "Check your front door. M." For a beat, I thought. Mark. Then I opened the peephole. On my mat sat a box the size of a bread loaf. No return label. A single line under the tape. Property of Lakeview Textile. Archive. The past had more to say, and it had chosen my threshold for its voice. Part 6. The archive on my doormat. The box sat like a command. Property of Lakeview. Textile. Archive. No return label, just that midnight text. Check your front door. M. Mark? Maybe. I slid the chain, lifted the box, set it on the table, and cut the tape in 2 strokes. Paper breathed out. Old air, machine oil, carbon dust. On top lay a note in block print. Hayes. Saw your name in probate. Klein kept extra books in my dad's garage. He's dead. I'm moving. This belongs with the women who did the hours. Monsieur Mendez. Not Mark. Mendez. The maintenance man who could make a loom purr with a butter knife and a prayer. Inside, 3 slim ledgers, a tape cassette in a cracked case, and a rubber-banded stack of yellow pay envelopes. I put on cotton gloves because habit is a skill. Popped the first ledger. Columns like railroad ties. Name, badge, shift, cuts. Not the neat theft from the probate book. This was the shadow book. Notes in the margin. Doc 15 for attitude. Move her to line C. Talks union. Hayes, hold back 0.5 will not notice. I noticed. The envelopes were worse. Each held a time card duplicate and a stapled IOU slip. Advance paid. Equipment penalty. Floor fine. None of us ever saw those. Klein shaved, then invented debt to cover the shaving. I photographed every page and emailed the set to Ms. Hargrove at 5:12 a.m. She replied at 5:18, "Do not let it walk," bringing a scanner. While the kettle boiled, I clicked the cassette into my old player. Static, then Klein's voice, thinner than his walk. March 12th met with Dalton about the Hayes situation. He says she won't make trouble if hours stay steady. Told him to keep her busy with overtime rotations. She'll be too tired to file. I stopped the tape and rewound slow, not because I doubted, but because proof tastes better twice. Dalton. Mark. He hadn't just left. He'd traded me to the clock. At 8, Hargrove arrived with a portable scanner and a face set to court. We fed pages. She labeled files. "This is bigger than restitution," she said. "This is retaliation and conspiracy. The probate judge will want it. The labor board will too." I texted Anita. "No porch house today. We're boiling old bones." By noon, we had a clean digital vault and 3 physical copies. One for the court, one for the board, one for my red folder. I wrapped the originals in butcher paper and slid them under my bed, because sometimes you still hide things like you're 22 and the landlord counts your spoons. Lisa called right then, breathless. "Mom, a reporter is asking about you at the store. Says he knows about the secret tapes." "Send him to Hargrove," I said, "and do not say the word tape again." I took the train to the courthouse and filed the new exhibits into the Klein estate. The clerk's eyebrows arched. "You people don't sleep." "We did," I said. "On our feet." Outside, a mid-tier sedan idled by the hydrant. Mark. He got out slow, hands visible like he'd watched a video. "Marge, hear me out." "You sold my hours for peace," I said without heat. "I have it on tape." He blanched, then tried the old sidestep. "It's not what it sounds like. It sounds like English." I took my phone, snapped his plate, and texted it to Hargrove. "You follow me, I file. Choose a new hobby." He didn't. He slunk. There's a sound shoes make when pride leaves first. Back home, the tape kept giving. Another entry. April 6th. Met with Monsieur Patel payroll disbursement cap. I stared at the ceiling. Mr. Patel? The banker? I called him. Marjorie, he said, voice level. That Patel is my uncle. He ran a check-cashing counter by the plant in the 80s. We cut him out of any clients with conflicts when I joined the bank. If you need a sworn statement, he'll give it. He hates what he did. Then he'll sign, I said, and he'll like it. Evening fell. I went to the bungalow. Denise was at the table sorting coins into envelopes labeled bus, lunch, soap, extra. Budgeting in ink looks like prayer if you tilt your head. House good? I asked. Heat doesn't thump and no one pounds on the door, she said. Feels like a church basement without the sermon. Keep the porch light flipped, I said. We're expecting moths. On the way back, I stopped by Lisa's. Evan opened with a wrench in his hand and grease on his knuckles. Not a speech. Tyler waved a homework sheet. Chloe showed me a Band-Aid and a proud finger. Normal. Correct. Earned. Mom, Lisa said, if that tape hits the wind, what happens? Nothing we're not ready for, I said, and everything someone has owed. At 10, the labor board investigator called from a number that sounded like fluorescent lighting. We've received Ms. Hargrove's materials. Tomorrow at 9? 9, I said. I'll bring the cassette and my ledger. Sleep came like a switch. When I woke, my phone held one more message from Mendez. Forgot box 2. Garage key and coffee can behind breaker panel at 16th St. Shop. Do it quick. Landlord's tossing everything Friday. I texted Anita. Gloves, flashlight, coffee, meet at 16th. We found the breaker panel by smell. The coffee can sat exactly where the note said. The key fit an overhead door that complained but obeyed. Inside, file drawers, a dolly, and a calendar frozen on 1991. We unpacked drawer 4, and I laughed once. The ugly sound that means victory's going to be practical. Stock certificates. Not for Lakeview, for a packaging supplier that had been bought, then split, then bought again. We Googled on Anita's phone in the dust. The paper had morphed through mergers into a dividend machine. Hargrove confirmed by noon. They owe you back distributions if the chain is clean. Not wealth, weather money. Enough to tarp a roof. We walked the files into her office, then walked ourselves to the porch house. Sylvia had left a note for Denise. Porch light bulb, spare in closet. The filament glowed like stubborn hope. That night, the reporter tried one more time, this time via email full of adjectives. I sent him 3 nouns. Counsel, court, records. He would print a story anyway. Let him print dates and math. They age better than words like courage. Mark, cornered, made the dumb play. He messaged Tyler from a burner. Tell your mom I never meant harm. Tyler screenshotted, blocked, and forwarded without commentary. The boy had learned the only answer that matters: documentation. At 9 sharp, the labor board took the cassette, the ledgers, and my sworn statement. We'll reach out to the others, the investigator said. This might widen. Good, I said. Let it. On my way home, I stopped at the bungalow and replaced the porch bulb with an LED rated for storms. Denise laughed. You plan like weather. I worked under ceilings that leaked, I said. I don't anymore. I made tea and wrote in my mother's ledger. Archive recovered, proof delivered, light replaced. Then I pulled my own red folder, slid the cassette copy behind the probate receipts, and looked at the final tab I hadn't touched yet. Education. I wrote 1 line on a fresh sheet. Scholarship, first award next fall, Girls from the neighborhood who work and don't wait. Name? Beatrice's Light. The phone buzzed. Anita again. You will not believe who just called the church asking for help money. Initials. MD. Tell him the sermon is short, I texted back. Work, then ask. Next part starts at a kitchen table, where 3 invitations lie side by side. One from the labor board for depositions, one from the packaging company about dividends, and one handwritten in blue ink. Tyler's, inviting me to his first paycheck dinner. Only one of those has a menu I trust. Part 7. Receipts and Recipes. 3 envelopes waited on my table like place cards. 1. State Labor Board, deposition notice. 2. Mid-pack packaging, dividend inquiry. 3. A blue ink note from Tyler. First paycheck dinner at our place. You're the guest. No bringing anything. Only one had a menu I trusted. At 9 sharp, I sat under buzzing lights at the labor board. The investigator set out a recorder and a glass of water I didn't touch. Hargrove nodded once. We'd practiced. State your name. Marjorie Hayes. You worked at Lakeview Textile? Years enough to count. Nights, too. He pressed play on the cassette copy. Klein's voice oiled the room. Dalton says she won't make trouble. The investigator didn't blink. Do you recognize that name? Yes. Your relationship? Former husband. Current cautionary tale. We laid the ledger pages in a tidy fan. Dockings. Fake fines. The shadow math. I didn't editorialize. I pointed. He took notes like a court stenographer with a conscience. When we finished, he capped his pen. Ms. Hayes, we'll contact the others. You may be called to testify. I own a clean dress, I said, and a calendar. Outside, the day smelled like hot copper. My phone pulsed with a reply from mid-pack. Chain validated. Historical certificates converted. Back dividends available. Please choose disbursement. Anita texted 30 seconds later. Lunch. We're dangerously cheerful. We met at a counter that still trusts pie. I slid the email across the laminate. She whistled, low. Not yacht money. Roof money, I said. And scholarship money. Beatrice's Light? First award next fall. 2 girls who work and don't wait. Before dinner at Lisa's, I stopped by the bungalow. Denise had set out 3 labeled jars on the counter. Next rent, bus, splurge, small, and taped a note to the fridge. Oven runs hot. Subtract 5 minutes. House wisdom moves room to room faster than sermons. At 6, I knocked on Lisa's door and smelled garlic, honest and loud. Tyler opened, flushed and focused, a towel over his shoulder the way cooks wear armor. Rules, he announced, half a grin. You sit, we plate, no lifting. They served meatloaf that held together, mashed potatoes that didn't fight the fork, green beans with crunch. Evan poured tea without a speech. Chloe hovered until she couldn't help herself and blurted, Grandma, I made the gravy from drippings. She waited like a student. It shines, I said. No lumps. She tried not to beam and failed. After the plates, Tyler slid an envelope across the table. His first pay stub. We said we'd show you when we earned it, he said. So, receipts. The numbers were small and perfect. He'd worked hours and received hours. Old math corrected. Lisa cleared her throat. We don't need help, Mom. Not tonight. We wanted you to see the table stands on our legs. Good, I said. Table should. The knock came as the sink ran. Evan opened. Mark stood in the hallway holding nothing, like a man who finally understands props won't help. He kept his hands visible and his voice low. "I heard about the labor board," he said to me. "You'll ruin me." "I didn't invent your tape," I said. "You did." He looked at Tyler and Chloe like maybe children would save him with softness. They didn't. Tyler picked up the dish towel and kept drying. Mark tried one last angle. "I could make a statement. Say Klein pressured me." "Make it to the board," I said. "Under oath. Not in a kitchen." He swallowed. "Can I—" "No," Lisa said. "You can't come in." He stood there a beat. Then he did the smallest correct thing men like him ever do. He left without breaking anything. We didn't toast victory. We stacked plates. Evan washed. Tyler wiped. Chloe swept. Lisa leaned against the counter and exhaled in a way I recognized from my own lungs. Years ago. Relief that isn't showy. On the way home, I stopped at the credit union and split the mid-pack money 3 ways on paper. Porch House Fund, Beatrice's Light, my emergency cushion. I withdrew $80 in 20s and walked to the bungalow. Denise was on shift. The living room was empty and square. I tucked 4 20s into the kagists. Exit grants. Envelope, wrote Psyche. D bus pass, plus deposits. And sealed it. Cash where paper can't wait. The labor board called 2 days later with a date for group statements. "Bring anybody who's nervous," the investigator said. I called Sylvia, who said she'd drive 2 friends. I called Mendez and thanked him until he mumbled. I called the reporter and said nothing at all. That Friday, Hargrove handed me a new letter for my red folder. Petition for restitution expansion. Class inquiry. It tasted like iron and orange peel, blood and citrus, past and fresh. On Saturday, I stood at the porch bungalow's doorway with Anita and changed the porch bulb anyway. LEDs last, but I like a ladder. A woman with a suitcase paused on the sidewalk, reading the laminated rules on the post. She looked up. "Is this the place?" "Yes," I said. "Bridge, not couch. Keys after we talk." She nodded like a person who understands the difference. That night Tyler texted a photo. His shoes on a mat, mud brushed clean. Below it, "I get why you like rules." I typed back one line. They let love do work. Sunday morning, I pulled the file that runs my life and added the newest page. Beatrice's Light, application draft. Under it, a single question I wish someone had asked me at 16. What have you already built? Not, what do you dream? Not, who do you know? What have you already made with your hands? The doorbell rang. Anita, early, carrying an armful of flyers for the workshop we teach in the church basement. Money and Boundaries, for women who have done enough for free. We stacked them in a neat pile, then shared a buttered roll over my sink like teenagers. "End of a chapter?" she asked. "No," I said. "End of a habit. Start of a better one." Before bed, I wrote 2 last entries. One in my mother's ledger, one in mine. Ledger, Beatrice's. Porch light still working. Rent, $0. Dignity, paid. Ledger, Marjorie's. Family fed themselves. Wolves kept off the step. Scholarship fund opened. Archive secured. Doors locked. Windows open. I slept with the window cracked. The city breathed. Somewhere across town, a kitchen learned how to preheat an oven and wait. At dawn, the light I pay for clicked on over a small porch, and a woman with a key stepped over a threshold that was hers for 90 days, and more importantly, hers at all. Part 8. Final entries. The last hearing ran fast. numbers and names stacked like bricks. The labor board set a schedule, expanded restitution, notices to every badge number we could find. Hargrove slid me a copy of the order. It felt heavier than paper. Mark showed up in a suit that didn't know him. Under oath, he said the sentence I'd been waiting to hear without drama. I asked Klein to keep Hayes busy so she wouldn't file. No excuses stuck to it. The court reporter tapped. The investigator thanked him, and that was that. Consequence signed in ink. I walked straight to the credit union and opened 3 envelopes. One for the Porch House Fund, utilities, repairs, exit grants. One for Beatrice's Light, our first 2 scholarships. One for me, an emergency cushion that wasn't a fantasy. A woman behind the counter said, "Bless you." And I said, "Balance me." And we both smiled. At the bungalow, Denise's jar system had multiplied. New labels, savings, kitchen. First month. On the table sat a folded note. Keys back next Friday. Lease signed. Thank you for rules. I swapped the porch bulb, oil wiped the rail, and added a fresh pack of sponges to the pantry because endings deserve clean beginnings. The scholarship day came like a holiday we invented. In the church hall, Anita hung a paper banner with crooked letters. Beatrice's Light. 2 girls from the neighborhood stood at the podium. Ava, who rebuilds bikes in her mother's yard, and Simone, whose Saturdays belonged to a soup kitchen she didn't wait to be asked to run. They read what they'd already built. We handed them envelopes and toolkits, a torque wrench for Ava, a chef's knife for Simone. No speeches beyond that. Work talks. On Lisa's street, a different scene. Evan's name on a black marker schedule. Night supervisor, steady. No quotes, no, for now. Tyler brought home a second pay stub without prompting. Chloe printed a chore rotation and taped it eye level. Love, itemized. Mark called once more, voice quiet. "I'm leaving town." "Leave the kids alone," I said. "I will." "Good." He didn't ask for addresses. He didn't apologize again. He just hung up, and for the first time since his return, the line stayed dead. Some closures are the sound of nothing. The reporter finally printed his story. Dates, figures, maps, no adjectives. There was a photo of 15 of us outside the board office, collars straight, mouths set. No heroes, no victims. Workers with ledgers. At my place, we marked it like we do now. Dinner you can eat without ceremony. Lisa made a stew that turned cheap cuts into something respectable. Evan fixed the sticky window latch as if it had always been his job. Tyler folded dish towels into tight rectangles. Chloe set down 4 plates and said, "Sit," the way I used to say it to the clock. When we were done, she passed me a small box. Inside, a label maker. "For your red folder," Tyler said, so the tabs stop curling. I laughed and stuck on new labels. Deed. Capacity. Resty. Expansion. Scholarship. Archive. The folder closed with a neat click. We took one more trip to the bungalow on Denise's last night. She left it better than she found it. Drain unclogged, stove degreased, a sticky note on the thermometer. Sweet spot is 360 degree. We stood on the porch as she locked up for the last time. "Where to now?" I asked. "Third floor walk up by the train," she said. "Not fancy. All mine." "Good." I pressed an exit grant into her hand and a set of measuring spoons into her bag. "Cook your own first meal." "Gravy without lumps?" she grinned. "Whisk, not fork. Measure with a cup, not your eyeballs. When she turned the corner, Anita blew her nose into a paper napkin. Hush, I said, though my throat felt like a door that needed oil. I went home and opened my mother's ledger and mine. 2 columns, 2 hands across 2 generations doing the same thing, stating what is true. I wrote, Ledger, Beatrice's. House occupied and emptied on schedule. Porch light replaced. Rules intact. Ledger, Marjorie's. Restitution widened. Scholarships awarded. Family fed themselves. Wolves kept off the step. A soft knock. Lisa, without warning, holding nothing. Just wanted to sit, she said. No asking. We watched the park in comfortable quiet. After a minute, she added, I'm proud of us. Me too, I said. It didn't need a paragraph. The city thinned to evening. I stacked the red folder, the label maker, and the ledgers. I set a timer to check the porch light before bed and texted Tyler a photo of the new labels. He answered with his shoes lined neatly on a mat and 2 words. Got it. I slept with the window cracked. Somewhere across town, Ava tightened a chain. Simone sharpened her knife. Denise folded a first rent receipt into a pocket that wasn't afraid. On the next block, a woman read our laminated rules and decided she could make 90 days stretch into a life. Morning came the way it always does. Slow, then all at once. I brewed coffee, turned the page, and wrote the last line my story needed. Dignity, current, balance, positive, porch light, on.